for a young person. If you look at the very top sentence in English of 134, quickly emptying her jar into the trough, she ran back to the well to draw, and she drew for all of his camels. Okay, well, what's so special about that line? Ra-da-da. We go back to the very idea of Rivka watering Eliezer's camels, servants' camels, and thus fulfilling the Eliezer's promise that God must show him the correct woman for marrying Isaac and continuing the legacy of the tribe. And this is how she serves it. She does it by offering him a drink and then offering to water all of his camels. Because of the length of time it takes to draw water and offer them to camels to drink. It's in the footnote somewhere. I always remember it as 10 hours. This is going to be a very, very long process of watering the camels and the servant's entourage. And yet she offers to do it, and this is the sign that she's the right person. As I often say, it's common when you learn this as 7 years old, you say, she really loved camels, and I really love my dog, and now today I'm a bat mitzvah. So that usually is the speech, and it has nothing, of course, to do with that. It's not that she's an animal lover. There are numerous dimensions to what makes Rivka great. I've covered a number of them in the past, in Torah study class and in sermons. Today I'll focus on yet another one that I haven't focused on. But what it does mean, at the very least, that she's watering the camels, is that she has a sensitivity that distinguishes her. And the sensitivity is not just to the camels, it's also to an outsider who's a stranger in the town. It's also to someone who has a great deal of need, and yet she has the quality to jump forth and to take on the task. And in a way that is often hard to see among young people today, she is hurrying to fulfill what she said that she would do. I still remember forever Joe Reisman's Jonah Devar Torah, where he was saying, you read this book Jonah, and Jonah's like whining the whole time, like, what, do I really have to go to Nineveh? And I don't really want to. You know what, I'm going to avoid by getting in the whale and all this, you know what I mean, and getting in a boat. And Joe's like, that's raising teenagers, right? Teenagers, God, all you want them to do is take a dish to the sink, but they'll give you half an hour of avoidance, right? Teenagers are not the ones who are usually saying, not only am I going to wash the car, Dad, I'm going to wash all 10 of the cars, and I'm going to hurry to do it. I'm going to run back to the well, and run back to the camel, and run back to the well, and run back to the camel. And the word that repeats itself is run, and the other word that repeats itself is hurry. She timahers. She's always maher. She's going fast. So she's very different than all of the other young people in the town, because she's not your typical teenager. So she sees the need and she runs to do it. But I have to put aside a lot of the things about her that are wonderful and special that I've taught before, and today stick to these two. Does anybody else know who else runs to do this basic mitzvah and who also hurries to do it? So they hurry and they run.
Sarah.
Good. Okay, Sarah, when?
She ran and got the food for the angels.
Now it's interesting, I have to look up, you can look up in the chapter, because I thought it was Abraham. I know it's Abraham too.
Abraham runs to get the lamb, but she ran to the kitchen. And
she runs to start making the cakes from the good white flour. Abraham and Sarah do this. So remember when the three angels or whatever, or the three men, it says men. We don't know that they're angels yet. When three men are passing by on the hottest day of the year, and Abraham's recovering from self-circumcision, he runs out to make sure that they get water and that they get fed and that they are invited to come and share in hospitality for the night. So just for today, we see the image of Rivka doing essentially the same thing. She's not even at home. She's out in the center of town. She rushes to the stranger, makes sure that he is watered, even more so his entire entourage and all of his animals. And so she's running and hurrying, just as Abraham ran and hurried. And if we look back, Rabbi's telling me that Sarah also ran to do it. And I have to see if she also is timahering, if she's also hurrying as well. So that it goes back to Abraham and also as well maybe to Sarah. This mitzvah that Abraham does of running out to make sure your needs are met, despite even the fact that he's suffering, it doesn't stop him from running to do it and to make sure that the angels or that the men are taken care of, even though they really don't need it because they turn out to not need to eat or drink or be washed or eat fine cakes. Another connection between Abraham and Rivka is, well, I'll give you two more quick ones. One is, if you notice, when Rivka introduces herself, she does not say she's related to Abraham, but the Torah does. So there is a difference in the two times. There's a repetition. If you look in verse 47 on page 136, and he said, I inquired of her, whose daughter are you? And she said, the daughter of Bethuel, son of Nahor, whom Milcah bore to him. That's the exact same words that the Torah told us a few pages earlier when describing her, except the Torah went out of its way to add that means that she is related by marriage to Abraham. I'm trying to go back to it. It should be, my eyes are not what they used to be. Does anybody see where the Torah introduces her?
I think at the beginning of Shlishi.
Beginning of Shishi?
Shlishi.
Beginning of verse, on the after 132. When the servant took out 10 of his masters. There it is. 133 in the middle. He had scarcely finished speaking when Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor. So when she describes herself, she has those exact words, but she leaves out Abraham. But the Torah goes out of its way to add the word Abraham. So the rabbis say, why? Because God is trying to tell us that she has a special connection to Abraham. She could be related to Sarah, right? They both come from the same town. But she has a special connection to Abraham. And I'll give you one other, which is, look at page 137. We have all of these things crammed together. We have her repeating the mitzvah of Abraham. We have her running. We have her hurrying over and over. We have her watering. We have her specifically pointed out, even though it's not, the Torah is trying to tell us that she has a special connection to Abraham. And on 137, the blessing that she gets. So they sent off their sister Rebekah and her nurse along. By the way, another connection before this. She becomes engaged to Isaac by arranged marriage. And then it would be typical, even as said in the Mishnah, engagement takes place 1 year prior to marriage. So even though today, when we do marriage ceremonies, you have 2 cups of wine, one for engagement and one for matrimony. And we separate them by about 5 minutes, depending on how long-winded the rabbi is, right? But in the Mishnah, in Jewish tradition, they were separated by 1 year. And that would give a year for the engagement to be broken should they realize this is not a great idea. The families realize it's not a great idea. They realize they're incompatible. Anything that comes up could cause it to be broken. And so here, it would be expected that she would stay 1 more year in her father's house before the marriage day. And she says, no, Elif, I'm going to run. No, I'm going to go. I'm going to go now. Where's that word lays? Again, a common word. We have run, we have hurry. I mean, they're not like in every sentence, but they're not the least common words in the Torah, but they're not as common as you think. It's not like everyone's running everywhere. But here we have Leif. So where else do we find them? Why is she saying, I need to go now and leave the town of my birth and head off to the promised land to meet Isaac, Lech Lecha. It was the same, it's in a way, she's fulfilling the same message given to Abraham when he was born in this town, and he's in this area, and God said, Lech Lecha, go now and leave it. Don't wait till you get older. Don't wait till you have more money. Don't wait till you have more security. Leave now and go to the land, which will be the promised land, and fulfill a destiny. So again, we have the Lech and the Lech Lecha. And finally, not finally, there are many more, but we'll finish today with the blessing. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, O sister, may you grow into thousands of myriads, and may your offspring seize the gates of their foes. It's not word for word the same, but it's almost word for word the same as the blessing to Abraham, where God says, may you grow into as numerous as the stars in the sky, and may you seize the gates of your foes. And so the blessing that pops out of the sisters' mouths, in a way they could never know, is really the blessing of God for Abraham again. What is the point? Wrap it up, is this. In the Amidah, when we chant the Amidah, we add those words. I'm listening to our young women chant them. And we say, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and then we're conservative egalitarian Jews. So we add in Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. I grew up in a conservative synagogue thinking we did that because the women's movement made us. I mean, let's just be really frank about it. And I spent a lot of my academic career doing women's studies because in the early 90s, it was mandatory. And so you have the sense in which, you are educated by, or we are educated by the women to say it's important to remember the women too. So okay, we'll remember the women too. I thought in a way that was an addition, a modern invention, perhaps even an inconvenience, but it's important to them and we put them in. I did not realize that is not the way to think of it at all. The fact is, within the Torah itself, and the rabbis saw this, there is already an understanding, and maybe you knew this and I didn't in my education. The matriarchs are more than the wives of the patriarchs. And they are more than women who have nice qualities, like, well, maybe you learn as a something. The Rivka, she was kind to animals, and that's a good quality in a girl, or something. That's silly. That what's going on is the women are actually sometimes really the leaders of the tribe. And while Isaac plays an important part, really Rivka is the successor to Abraham and then passes it on to Jacob. She becomes the one who ensures the future of the tribe. And not because of one day, one scene while she's cooking or something like that. Essentially, she inherits the blessing and the message from God, and she embodies the qualities of Abraham that make her in many ways his successor to carry us through to Israel, to carry us through to Yaakov and Israel. And she is worthy of being in every Amidah. She's worthy of being understood as the leader that the Torah says she is. She embodies his quality of another word that repeats dozens of times in the Parsha in very sneaky ways. If we're in Torah study, we would go through them. The word chesed, the word that gives us gemilut chasadim, acts of loving kindness. The word chesed is used adverbially in all kinds of weird ways here where you don't even notice it in the English. But basically she embodies this generosity of spirit, this natural inclination to run and hurry, to do good deeds, that becomes codified, that becomes a regular, normal expectation of every Jew once we have the mitzvot. She's a successor and leader, she inherits the blessing, and she embodies the qualities of leadership. May our women continue to be our leaders, not because of a modern sensibility, but because the sensibility and history of our ancestors. Shabbat Shalom. I asked